Okay, hi everybody, I'm Matt Towers. I'm a professor here in the ceramics department at the University of Hartford, Hartford Art School. You can see elbow patch proves I'm a professor. I wear this to respect the clay. You must respect the clay. Today I'm going to demo a plate on a mold. I'm going to roll out a slab on the slab roller here. So I've got it on my canvas here. Okay, I'm going to take this back to my table. I threw a plate out of clay on the wheel and I cut the edges to create this shape. Then I put a wall around it and cast the whole thing in plaster, which is what this is plaster. And then I took some tools and I carved all this pattern into it. So now I can take slabs, put slabs on there, throw a foot onto it, and then I have this plate, which I can make multiples of, that have this same pattern and design on it. I've wet this mold a little bit because that will help what's called capillary action. So that'll help draw the water out of the slab when I put it on there and help it stick to the mold. I'm going to use this tool, which is called a rib, and I'm going to run it across the surface of this clay because it's kind of got the texture of the canvas on there, and if I don't rub it out, it will remain on there, and I don't want to keep the canvas texture on this. So now I'm going to transfer the slab onto the mold. Cut some of this away too. So now I'm going to compress the slab, and I want to start from the center and press straight down and work my way around and down. If I smear it, it will smear the pattern. And if I start down here, I'll trap air up here. So it's not only compressing it on the clay, but I'm not going to trap air in it. And I want to really get that pattern on there. Okay, so that's done. I'm going to roll out a few coils that I'll need to make the foot and also to strengthen the edge a little bit. I like the edge to be a little bit thicker. Just rolling out the coils, starting from the center and working my way out. I've made it so that this mold can fit onto my wheel head. I cut this out of plywood, this ring that then fits over into these pins on the wheel head, and this mold then fits right into this ring, so I don't have to worry about centering it, and it's secured onto the wheel head. Trim off some of the excess clay here that goes beyond my rim, and you'll see later on, as this begins to dry in the mold, it will begin to shrink away from this edge here, leaving a gap, so I'll know that's when it's ready to take off. I've made my little coil for my rim, so this just gives extra strength to the rim by thickening it up a little bit. I've noticed as I've worked with this mold that it needs to have that extra strength in the rim. Now I can get the wheel going and start to smooth this out. So now I'm going to use my rib to get some of the excess moisture off the surface because my coil for my foot won't stick to it if it's all slimy like this. So I'm just getting off excess wet clay. I'm going to kind of mark where I want to attach my foot there. And I'll start to attach it. So I'm just pressing down, following that little line that I made. And when I get to the point where I've got the two excess ends here, I'll cross them over, cut straight through, and then I have a perfect little connection there where it connects. So now I'm going to turn the wheel back on and center and compress this coil to create the foot. So get it nice and wet. And I'm using some of it to give a little bit of excess clay at the bottom of my plate where the rim meets the eating surface. And I'm also going to incorporate that into the design also. So shaping the foot, which as I said later will be trimmed a little more sculpturally. And once I get that centered, I'm going to go back and use my rib again to get rid of the excess surface moisture so I can stamp the surface. And like I said, I have this excess clay that I spread out from the foot ring that I'm going to use to create some interest on the back here of the plate. Since it is a three-dimensional object, you want to make sure the back is interesting to look at also. Just going to use my fingers now to get a little bit of the excess moisture off of the edges here so that when I use my stamps, they don't stick. And I wet this stamp because if it's too dry, this clay is going to want to fall right off of it. So I want it to stick a little bit so that I can get it onto the plate and then pull it off. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the center. Press it on there, pull it off. And now I want to give a little pattern to the back that reflects what's going on the inside of the plate. So this is a little plaster stamp that I carved. As you can see on the mold, I've got little notches lined up so that where those lines are on the other side of the plate is a coordinating pattern. So I can just compress it. So I'll let this set up till it gets leather hard, until it starts coming away from the edge of the rim. I'll trim the foot a little bit and pop it off. So this particular mold, because it's so heavily carved, is a little tricky, but I can pry it loose. I'm going to put this bat or this board on top of it, flip it, and then it's released from the mold. So once I release it from the mold, I just have a little cleanup on the edge there. So I take this little Surform and I can just sort of get the little bit of the sharpness off the edge there. And once I get all the way around, I like to take my sponge and just give it a nice pass over there. So then I'll let this get dry, and then I'll bisque fire it, which is the first firing, and then I'll glaze it and glaze fire it. And I have an example of one that's just come out of the glaze kiln here. So I use 3 different glazes on that. You can see the underside of the foot. You can also see how much this has shrunk through the whole process of drying and firing. Thanks guys for watching. Continue to check out our website. There'll be demos by other faculty, and check out my website, matttowersceramics.com. Thanks.